Digimon World Dawn and Dusk were games I played a whole lot when I was a kid, mostly just because those were the only games I was interested in at the time, and I could easily emulate them on my desktop that I had as a kid. But regardless, these games do hold a special place in my heart, but it's partly because they were my first Digimon game. But regardless, I could still see the massive problems with them, but in some way I still do like other aspects of the game. And on that, I think we should actually get into the topic of the video. And one of the things that I love about the game has to be the massive roster of Digimon. The game has about like 400 different Digimon, which is pretty nice just because you can basically customize your team to any way you like, at least with the Digimon that's in the game. But I still think it's really high up there with the replayability because again of the huge amount of options. So my favorite Digimon in this roster has to be Slash Angemon, Sanamon, Dino Beamon, and quite a bit of the Armor Digimon. And every time I play the game, I try to add in a Digimon or two that I've never used before just because I want to see them in action, and the roster's again pretty big. Another part I love about this game definitely has to be the gameplay, and it's mostly the same as Cyber Sleuth, but I still think it's really fun here. I think the type of gameplay within the series was started with the first DS title Digimon World DS, but regardless, it's still, again, fun. How it plays, if you don't know, depending on your attack, it depends on your order for your next one, and with the bonus of having to deal with what position the Digimon is in. And with your own Digimon, you can actually get buffs depending on where your Digimon is. So like say, if you put a Greymon next to a Garurumon, the Greymon could probably give the Garurumon a attack buff or something like that. I don't know the exactly, but I'm just guessing on something like that. Along with making sure certain attacks actually don't hit all your Digimon, so you can like reposition your Digimon to say if you want to get more buffs, or say if you just want to spread them out so you make sure that they just don't get all hit at the same time. I also really enjoyed the sprites in the game, both the ones in the field and the ones in battle. I feel a lot of the animations the sprites do, both again in those two situations, add a lot of personality to the Digimon. The ones in the battle look super detailed, and again, they do have nice animations, and I admit they were probably a lot more detailed just because of the fact that, you will be staring at them in battle quite a lot, but, regardless, it's still nice. They also have versions of them taking damage, which kind of help make the Digimon feel more alive. And I also do like how a lot of the sprites have a good sense of size, because a lot of Digimon actually kind of feel accurate to like how they would be in terms of like say the anime, in terms of the size of that. I always like it, and it adds a nice touch. I do admit, I think most of the sprites here were probably taken from the other Digimon DS game, but I don't think that matters just because again they are really good looking sprites. Then there are the dungeons, and I find them to be pretty nice overall. They are really good to explore and again visually look really stunning. I find that I do end up liking pretty much all the areas just to see what they have to offer in terms of Digimon and just their exploration. It's really fun to see what Digimon are in each area, and I know that's kind of minor, but it's something I look forward to. And I know this was more when I first played the game, but you still kind of get my point. I like seeing what Digimon are in each area and just seeing like familiar faces. And as you probably heard from me talking, I have a lot of nostalgia for the game. I can't really hate it as a whole, but I still have a lot of problems with the game since it was made back in like the early 2010s, if I believe, and it was just there are a lot of modern games that just fix a lot of the problems. And of course, one of these problems I had is that you have to grind a lot for the evolution. These games, along with the first DS entry, have something called Species Experience, and it's basically exactly how it sounds, where you gain EXP based on whatever species the Digimon is. So, for example, if you fight an Agumon, you will get some Dragon Experience. This makes a lot of the layer evolution super grindy just because it can get up there in terms of how much you need, mostly in the high thousands, and sometimes it can get upwards of like 10,000 or more, and that's a lot for like the layer evolutions, especially some of the DNA evolutions later on. And it sometimes again can make me not want to grind just because why would I spend all that time grinding for one Digimon? And I know not all evolutions have species experience, but it's still really annoying. Then there are the bosses, and I feel the only problem I have with them is that all the layer bosses are really grind heavy, just because if you don't reach a certain point, or with the levels and stuff, you just can't beat them, and that kind of sucks. It's also really annoying when you digivolve, your level gets reset back to 1, and I know that this was in the first Digimon DS game and Cybersleuth and Haga's Memory. It's just that here there's no way to help level up faster, unlike Cybersleuth and Haga's Memory, and it just makes grinding a whole lot worse to me. The menus also feel really sluggish, where just going through them takes a lot longer than you would expect, and it feels like every time you exit out of one, it takes a second for you to get control back, and it just does not feel nice. This also applies to the turn-based combat, and considering the fact that you play the game like that, it just sucks on a whole nother level. Another really small part that just really time wasting and just can really built up a lot of annoyance has to be when you get into battle, every Digimon scans in, and it takes about 3 seconds, and that can range from 1 Digimon to 5 or even more. I'm not exactly sure how much Digimon can be in a battle, but like, trust me, it can be a lot. And all of these things just make the game really hard to come back to, just because I either have to grind a whole lot or just move through really sluggish menus. This is kind of why I wouldn't really recommend this game as much, just because I feel if you play the modern games especially, and even if you just play this for the first time, you just would not enjoy it as much. And the last real complaint I have definitely has to be the characters, where I find all of them to be super uninteresting. Like, none of them go through any personal arcs, and even when they do talk, it's just a whole lot of nothing. And the interactions you have with the other team is almost non-existent, and even when you do talk to them, it's just them doing something bad for whatever reason. Because I do know at one point they do get mind controlled, but like, it doesn't really matter, considering the fact that you could replace them with any other human and it would be the exact same thing. This kind of sucks to me because it feels like that was the main reason why they made 2 versions. The best I can compare it to is Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, just because they have 2 interchangeable teams with not much difference. And even members in your own team actually don't really do all that much. And it just really sucks because they have a huge cast and they just do nothing with them. I often forget the characters' names just because, again, they are nothing and they just aren't as interesting. But frankly, I think the worst part of the game definitely has to be the little gameplay quirks. I just can't really get over them. The characters are something I could just skip over because I could just end up mashing through the dialogue, but like, you know, the gameplay is just, again, the worst part. It's just really sluggish, and I feel it might be a turn off to people coming back to this one. A lot of the modern games ended up improving the gameplay. It just makes it a lot faster and a lot smoother, which is good. It just sucks because I feel these games could have been a lot more. But I want to hear what you guys like and dislike about these games. Let me know in the comments below. And of course, before we finish the video, let's go over the likes and dislikes. Likes, roster of Digimon, gameplay, sprites, good dungeons. Dislikes, a lot of grinding, really weird gameplay quirks, and really boring characters. Thank you all for watching, and see you guys later.